$2, one ingredient. Every bug gone all day. Safe enough to put on a baby, the Amish have used it for generations. DEET companies have known about it the entire time, and they spent 50 years making sure you never connected the two. Stay with me. The ingredient is called tallow, rendered beef fat, the same fat that has been sitting in kitchens, on farms, and in medicine chests across the American countryside for 200 years. You probably know it as the stuff your grandmother saved in a jar after cooking. White, solid at room temperature, soft when warm, completely odorless when pure. Farmers rubbed it on cracked hands. Mothers smoothed it on dry skin. Frontier families used it for everything from leather conditioning to wound sealing to lamp fuel. It was the most versatile substance in the pre-industrial household. And every summer, the Amish rubbed it on their skin before working in the fields, and the bugs left them alone. That last sentence is the one the bug spray industry needs you to dismiss. So, before they get a chance, let me show you why it works. Because the science is real, it is documented, and it changes everything you think you know about what belongs on your skin when you go outside. Your skin already produces its own fat. It is called sebum. Your body makes it constantly, pushing it out through the pores all over your face and body. Sebum is your skin's natural waterproofing, its moisture barrier, its first line of defense against the environment. And the molecular composition of sebum is remarkably similar to the composition of tallow. Both contain the same family of fatty acids, oleic acid, palmitic acid, stearic acid. Both carry fat-soluble vitamins, specifically A, D, E, and K. When you apply tallow to skin, your body recognizes it. The fat absorbs rather than sitting on top. It integrates. It reinforces the natural barrier your skin is already trying to maintain. Now here's why that matters for bugs. Mosquitoes, gnats, ticks, flies, they do not navigate by sight. They navigate by scent, by carbon dioxide, by heat signatures, and by the specific chemical compounds your skin releases, particularly lactic acid, and the volatile organic compounds in your sweat. A mosquito zeroes in on you from 30 feet away by following those chemical signals. They land on exposed skin, find a spot where the surface is thin and blood vessels are close, and they feed. Tallow disrupts this process at the surface level. The fat layer it creates on skin alters the chemical signature the bugs are reading. It does not eliminate your carbon dioxide output or your body heat, but it changes the surface chemistry enough to confuse the sensory apparatus of the insect trying to land. The fat creates a physical barrier that makes it harder to find the landing spot and penetrate the skin. And when you add the natural botanical compounds that the Amish have always combined with tallow, rendered fat infused with herbs like lavender, rosemary, and pine tar, the repellent effect compounds dramatically. The essential oils in those plants contain compounds that insects find actively, nostal citronella, linalool. The fat carries those compounds onto the skin and keeps them there, slowly releasing over hours, the same way a slow-release medication works. The fat is not just a repellent. It is a delivery system for one of the most effective natural repellent compounds ever documented. Now here is what the science says. Stay with me because this part is important. In 2024, researchers at New Mexico State University published a study testing the insect repellent properties of traditional fats used by Native American communities for 300 years. The team tested beef tallow alongside other animal fats against mosquitoes in controlled laboratory conditions. The study, published through the university's entomology and covered by their official newsroom, confirmed that animal fats demonstrated measurable repellent activity against mosquitoes. The researchers noted that these traditional methods had been used by indigenous communities for centuries with practical effectiveness, and that modern laboratory testing was confirming what generations of practical use had already established. The knowledge was not superstition. It was applied biology, developed through centuries of observation by people who could not afford to be wrong. The Amish inherited this knowledge through the same channel. Most practical farming knowledge travels through families, through communities, through the accumulated observation of what worked and what did not across generations of outdoor labor. Amish farmers work long days in fields and gardens without the option of retreating indoors from the bugs. They needed a solution that was cheap, available, safe for their children, and effective enough to rely on for an entire day of physical work. Tallow, with infused botanicals, was that solution. It still is, in Amish communities where synthetic chemical products are either avoided on principle or simply not purchased because they are not needed. But the Amish were not alone in this knowledge. Every farming community in America before the mid-20th century had some version of this practice. Southern farmers mixed lard with pine tar and rubbed it on before working in swampy fields. Frontier families rubbed animal fat mixed with crushed herbs on their children before sending them outside. Hunters and trappers coated exposed skin with rendered fat, not just for warmth and wind protection, but because the fat layer reduced the chemical signals that insects followed. Cowboys on long cattle drives understood that working with animals, smelling of the cattle and the land and the fat they used on their gear, they were less appetizing to the biting insects of the plains than a city visitor walking into the same field. The knowledge was everywhere. It was common. It was assumed. Nobody wrote it down because nobody needed to write it down. It was just what you did, like putting a lid on food or keeping fires away from dry wood. And then, in the span of a single generation, it was gone. Not destroyed, not banned, just replaced by something that came in a bottle from a store, that cost money, and that had a label that made it sound like science. So, if this works, if the science supports it, if generations of practical use confirm it, then why are you buying a bottle of DEET every summer? Why does no pediatrician recommend tallow? Why has no major media outlet ever run a story explaining that the thing your great-grandmother saved in a jar after cooking would keep the mosquitoes off her grandchildren? Here is the part that should make you furious. DEETN, undiethylmetatolamide, was developed by the United States Army in 1944. It was created specifically for use by military personnel operating in heavily insect-infested jungle and swamp environments during World War II. The Army needed something powerful enough to protect soldiers in conditions where insect-borne disease was killing as many men as enemy fire. They found it in a synthetic compound derived from petroleum chemistry. DEET worked extremely well for that purpose. It is still one of the most effective insect repellents ever synthesized. In 1957, it was approved for public sale. And that is the moment the story shifts from a useful military technology to a very profitable commercial product. The chemical company that brought DEET to the consumer market had a significant problem to solve. Not a scientific problem, a marketing problem. The old knowledge faded with the generation that had used it. The jar of tallow in the kitchen became a relic of the past rather than a tool of the present. And every summer since then, American families have been buying plastic bottles of synthetic chemical at $20 to $40 each, applying it to their children's skin, reading warning labels that say things like, "Avoid contact with open wounds. Do not allow children to handle this product. Wash hands after application," and treating all of that as simply the cost of going outside. There is an irony here that the industry will never acknowledge. DEET is absorbed through the skin. Multiple studies have documented DEET in the bloodstream within hours of application. The EPA has documented cases of seizures and neurological reactions associated with DEET exposure, particularly in children. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that DEET products not be used on children under 2 months of age. Some pediatricians extend that caution informally. You are not supposed to use it on children under 2 months. It says so on the label. But nobody ever told you that an alternative existed that you could put on a newborn without a second thought. Because an alternative that can be made from beef fat in your own kitchen has never had a marketing budget. Tallow is rich in vitamins A, D, E, and K. It closely matches the natural oils your skin already produces. It absorbs rather than sitting on the surface. It does not require a warning label. It does not require washing off. It has been used on human skin, including the skin of infants, for as long as humans have kept cattle. If you left a child alone with a jar of pure tallow, the worst thing that would happen is they would get greasy. The same cannot be said for the product in the orange bottle in your medicine cabinet. Here is what you can do right now. Making a basic tallow bug balm requires 3 things. Rendered beef tallow, which is available from most butchers for $2 a pound or less. And from some grocery stores and online suppliers in already rendered form. A small amount of essential oil for repellent potency, citronella, eucalyptus, lavender, lemongrass, or rosemary, any of which can be found at a health food store or online for a few dollars, and a clean container to store it in. Melt the tallow gently over low heat. Do not let it smoke. Add your chosen essential oils, roughly 10 to 15 drops per cup of tallow, or more if you want a stronger scent. Pour into a small tin or glass jar and let it solidify at room temperature. That is the entire process. The result is a balm that can be rubbed onto exposed skin before going outside. It absorbs within minutes, leaves no heavy, greasy residue if applied in a thin layer, and provides a combination of physical barrier and botanical repellent activity that the Amish have been relying on for generations of outdoor farm work. Reapply after heavy sweating or swimming, the same as you would with any topical product. For children, a thinner application works well. Warm, a small amount between your palms, and smooth it over exposed arms and legs. The essential oils are diluted enough in the fat that they are not irritating to most skin, though as with any product, you can test a small area first. For infants, plain tallow without essential oils provides the physical barrier without any botanical compounds at all, just fat, on skin, the way it has been used for centuries. You will not find this in a pharmacy. You will not find it recommended by a mainstream pediatrician or advertised during the evening news. The product cannot be patented. The recipe cannot be owned. The raw ingredient comes from a cow and costs $2 a pound. There is no margin in it for a corporation, no subscription model, no recurring revenue stream. A family that learns to make tallow bug balm in the spring is a family that will not be buying bug spray for the rest of the summer. Multiply that by the hundreds of millions of households in America that buy insect repellent annually, and you begin to understand the scale of what it means for the industry that you never learned this existed. Think about the numbers. The global insect repellent market is valued at over $4 billion a year. American households spend an estimated $1 billion annually on personal insect repellent products alone. That is $1 billion every single year for a problem that a jar of $2 beef fat and $5 of essential oils can solve for an entire summer. The math is not complicated. It is just inconvenient for the companies whose revenue depends on you not doing it. And the deeper insult is this: the warning labels tell the full story if you read them carefully. DEET products routinely carry instructions that reveal exactly how seriously the manufacturers themselves take its safety. Do not apply to skin under clothing. Avoid applying to cuts or irritated skin. Do not use near eyes or mouth. Do not apply to children's hands because children put their hands in their mouths. If you apply too much, wash it off with soap and water immediately. These are not the instructions for something that was designed to be put on a child. These are the instructions for something that was designed to keep jungle insects off a soldier, adapted for consumer sale with a minimum of modification and a maximum of profit. The DEET companies did not invent a better solution. They sold a synthetic substitute for a solution that already existed, stripped the original solution from public memory within a single generation, and then charged you for the replacement every summer for the rest of your life. That is not an accident of progress. That is a business model. And the evidence has been sitting in your grandmother's kitchen the whole time, in a jar beside the stove, waiting for someone to remember what it was for. The jar costs $2 total. The bugs, no. Now so do you. If this vault opens something for you, subscribe and hit the bell. Every like and every share preserves what they tried to erase. The next vault opens soon.